Welcome back. Now, we'll fill you in on the story of the Muqattam miracle, which we mentioned at the end of the previous unit and which Father Samaran managed to use so cleverly for his project. This story is widespread among the Copts, not only in written form or by means of oral transmission. Since the 1990s, it has also been available in the form of a movie, produced under the auspices of the Coptic Orthodox Church itself. Of course, this movie is a product of modern times, a kind of historical costume drama in which many details are added to elaborate the story. It is almost 2 hours long, whereas the original story fills only a few pages of Arabic text. But in many places, it faithfully follows the original text as it was written down in the 11th century. So, in presenting the story to you, we'll also show you a few short clips from this movie.
The story takes place in the 10th century, when the Patriarch of Coptic Church was Avraham ibn Zura, from 975 to 978. The ruler of Egypt at that time, according to the story, was the Caliph al-Mu'izz. This ruler was one of the Imam Caliphs of the Fatimid dynasty, which was mentioned in the general introduction to this course. The fact that al-Mu'izz belonged to this particular dynasty is a tremendously important detail for the historical interpretation of this story, as we shall see in the next video. According to the story, the Patriarch Avraham got along very well with the Caliph, who is simply called king here, or Malik in Arabic. Furthermore, it is well known to specialists in Fatimid history that the Caliph al-Mu'izz had the habit of inviting prominent representatives of the various religious communities in Egypt to defend their respective creeds in his presence at his court. In these discussions, everyone was encouraged to debate freely and openly. One day, according to our story, one of the Coptic bishops takes part in such a religious dispute and makes a remark about the Jewish creed that offends the vizier and one of his personal friends, an eminent member of the Jewish community. Please note that this vizier, Yaqub ibn Killis, was of Jewish extraction himself, but had converted to Islam. In his anger with the Coptic bishop, Ibn Killis, the vizier mentions a Bible verse that says,
"If you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move."
Ibn Killis says to the Caliph that the Patriarch must make the mountain move, literally just as it says in the Bible verse. The implication of this, of course, is that he thinks that this is absurd and utterly impossible. Incited by his vizier, the Caliph threatens the Patriarch that if he fails, all Christians in Egypt will be annihilated. Pope Avraham replies in utter distress,
"Grant me a delay of 3 days, so that the Lord will render the heart of the commander of the faithful favorable." He granted him this, and he returned to his dwelling place in Old Cairo, and he summoned all the priests and notables and the whole Orthodox community.
He orders all of these people to fast and to pray for 3 days. The Patriarch himself spends these 3 days and nights in the church, entirely without sleep and without food. At the end, he is completely exhausted, but then he beholds a vision of the Virgin Mary, who gives him instructions to perform the miracle.
لا تخف أيها الراعي الأمين، فإن دموعك التي سكبتها في هذه الكنيسة مع الأصوام والصلوات التي قدمتها أنت وشعبك لن تنسى. اخرج الآن من الباب الحديدي المؤدي للسوق، ستجد رجلا بعين واحدة حاملا جرة ماء، اختاره الرب لتتم المعجزة.
So, he has to look for a half-blind man who will assist him in this mission impossible. And indeed, he runs into a man who has lost his sight in one eye. the patriarch informs him that he is the one who must help perform the miracle, and thus save all Copts from utter perdition.
The man answered, saying, "Forgive me, my father, for I am a sinner, and I have not reached this degree."
The patriarch also asks him about his physical defect, but all we learn about this is what he tells the patriarch.
"I am a tanner. Look at this eye of mine which is in front of you. I plucked it out on account of the commandment of the Lord when I looked at what was not mine, and I realized that I would go to hell because of that."
So, in his simplicity, he thought it was his duty to apply an extremely harsh instruction that he knew from the New Testament literally.
"And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with one eye than with two eyes to be thrown into the hell of fire."
After the patriarch's repeated plea, the tanner finally accepts this divine duty and gives him detailed instructions about how to actually make the mountain move. And look, here is how the story unfolds in the film. Pope Abraham, accompanied by the entire Coptic community of Cairo, moves to the foot of the Muqattam mountain in solemn procession, and everybody chants Kyrie eleison, which means in Greek, "Lord have mercy." There, the Vizier Ibn Kilis and his Jewish friend are waiting, as well as the Caliph and his entourage. To the astonishment of all, the mountain is lifted from its place 3 times. Needless to say, the Caliph is awestruck.
The king al-Mu'izz feared greatly, and the Muslims cried out, "God is great, there is no God besides thee." Then the king said to the patriarch after the 3rd time, "Enough, O patriarch, I have recognized your religion in truth."
As for the saint, the half-blind tanner, he has been instrumental in the miracle, but once it has been performed, he is nowhere to be found. But to come back to the Caliph al-Mu'izz, he is so impressed by the miracle that he is willing to grant the patriarch any favor he asks, but the latter declines.
He said, "My only desire is that God strengthens your throne and gives you victory over your enemies."
Only after al-Mu'izz insists 3 times does Abraham modestly seek his permission to rebuild the demolished church of Saint Mercurius and the so-called Hanging Church in Old Cairo. The Hanging Church is one of the most famous Coptic churches, and it is also known in Arabic as the al-Mu'allaqa Church. The Caliph agrees and personally sees to it that these churches will actually be rebuilt.
This, in a nutshell, was the narrative of the miracle account. Let's say for now that, like so many stories, it conveys a clear message to the people it addresses. Any challenge to their own Christian faith is futile. And let's keep in mind that this story is the one that Father Sam'an used for his project in our own times. If you want to know how we did this, just keep following us.